Good day, and welcome to Our Power is Within, a weekly podcast that I hope will inspire you to take your power back and discover beautiful sources of self-healing that resonate with your heart. I'm your host, Chasmith, aka Just Chaz. So, how was this last week? Did you guys take me up on the challenge and do something to make someone else smile? Did you smile in the process? What made your heart sing this week? What brought you immeasurable joy? I truly would love to hear all about it. So shoot me a DM or an email and share the good stuff. And this week, my challenge is for you to do heart-focused breathing. Eyes open or close, whatever feels most appropriate for you, but you place your hand on your heart and you imagine breathing directly into and out of that heart center. Inhaling for a count of 3, 4, or 5 seconds. And while you're inhaling, imagining breathing in self-compassion. And then you exhale the same length as the inhale. Once again, through the heart center. And you exhale compassion for someone else you love. See if you can do this for 3 minutes. And if you can do it once a day, then that's an bonus wins. But even if you do it once, that's a win. So you celebrate yourself. Oh, and you know what? If you actually want to, take it one step further. I love this. Find a buddy who will commit with you and then plan to do it at the same time together. You don't need to be together. You just need to do it at the same time from wherever you each are at. And then what you actually do is you breathe into your heart center, self-compassion for yourself, and you exhale that self-compassion for your buddy. And they do the same thing for you. I actually recently did this with one of my friends, and it was so powerful. My heart felt more coherence than any other time I have done this alone. It was so much fun. What a wonderful bond and connection it also makes with a friend or a loved one. Plus, it's kind of nice having an accountability buddy. So give it a try. Let me know how it goes. And have fun with it because you're worth it. You really are. You are worth your own compassion, your own care, and you are worth giving yourself the gift of 3 minutes of your time to spend with your own heart. And speaking of self-worth, compassion, and hearts, I'm actually really excited for the chat I'm sharing with you guys today. Our guest is a wonderful guy from Boston. His name is Nick Shrewsbury. I really honestly love everything about this discussion, you guys. I believe that Nick has a beautiful perspective on life, heart, love, and his relationship with himself. But as you will learn throughout this story, this perspective did not come easy, and it was something he had to carve out and learn through his healing journey. He has some wonderful metaphors of his journey, and as you listen to him speak, you can just feel his passion, his compassion, and his gentleness with himself. We talk about everything from radical acceptance of what is, learning to find joy in the simplest things, learning how to receive life, and what it takes to shift from a life path that's not aligned to your truth and stepping into one's authentic self and discovering that when we operate from within our authenticity, we are really able to tap into what lights us up and brings us all the juicy passion. Nick talks about how he attributes the bulk of his healing to learning how to accept himself, to release the walls of resistance, and how over time, as he continues to grow emotionally on this journey, the physical symptoms start to recede. One of his biggest resources of inspiration on this journey was a woman named Tara Brach. I will provide links in the show notes for Tara if you want to look further into her work. I will also provide links in the show notes for how you can get in touch with Nick if his message resonates with you and you want to reach out to him. He's currently coaching individuals who want to build fulfilling relationships founded on a strong internal connection. And he offers free discovery sessions so people can get a sense of how he operates as a coach. All right, guys, as Nick says in the end of our interview, our discussion, magic is real, and I believe it. It's everywhere when we are looking for it. And I hope this episode and this discussion brings you a little magic today. So let's go ahead and welcome Nick to the show. Nick, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here today.
Hey, Jasmine. Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. So I am really excited to share. Well, I'm really excited to allow you to share your story with the listeners.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat.
I know that I actually don't know much about your story. I know you and I briefly communicated, and you very briefly told me a little bit about your journey, but it's all new to me. So I'm really excited to learn along the way. So I really just want to jump right in and give the floor to you and let you talk about whatever you feel comfortable talking about, kind of from, where it began, whatever, talk about what you've experienced physically, the pain, the dis-ease in your body, and what approaches you took. Feel free to be as detailed as you want as far as what you did that didn't work, and then what really, really made a difference for you.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, okay. So I went on the full Lyme adventure, and I had the full party experience. I had a number of tick-borne infections. It was like Lyme, Babesia, Bartonella, and obviously, the tests for those aren't great. But I was shelling out to do the the hygienics and all the nicer tests, and so. That was the sort of diagnosis. The symptom itself was, the main one was like nerve pain all throughout my legs. So it was like to the point, and this was like a 2-year healing process. It was to the point where just standing was really painful. So before this, I was doing all these body things. So I was teaching yoga, and I was working on a farm doing medicinal herbs, growing them. And then this sort of experience happened, and I was just like, okay, everything stop.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
do you actually recall getting bit by ticks, or no, is this just completely news to you?
Yeah, I definitely was bitten by ticks. I grew up half an hour north of Boston, and I definitely remember through my adolescence getting bitten many times. And the summer before this experience happened, this was back in 2015, that I was in the middle of this healing. I had been working at a timber framing place, and then also when I was doing the medicinal herbs too, I was out in the gardens, and I was definitely alert to ticks, but I had gotten bitten. Yeah.
So you basically had been bitten throughout your life, but never really thought anything of it, never worried about it, and earlier on never had symptoms, and then all of a sudden you started getting symptoms, and then as you went down the rabbit hole of figuring out why the symptoms were occurring, they discovered that, or they quoted it to be Lyme disease.
Yes, I had done courses of doxycycline before when I had gotten bitten, and I actually had a significant sort of Lyme experience before, where I got the 103-degree fever and the whole thing.
How old were you when you first had symptoms?
Honestly, I don't know specifically that one, but I was younger. I was probably 12, 13.
Okay. And how old were you when when it got to the point where you actually had to start really addressing it?
I was 25.
Okay.
2015. I'm 30 now.
So you went through a long time where it was just, manageable, tolerable, where you weren't thinking, oh, I have Lyme disease right now.
Yeah. So originally the doxycycline course I did, I think it was a 3-week course. It totally took care of it. No problems. As far, I'll just say that it totally took care of it. And So later, actually though, like since my symptom was just this nerve pain, it was a year just to get diagnosed as Lyme, which I know like a lot of people have that experience, because it's such an adaptable thing, and it just goes to all these different, I mean, it just attacks connective tissue in so many different forms.
Right.
The symptoms really vary. And so mine was that like nerve pain experience.
Okay.
And I had like they just told me so many different things. What it ended up being classified was like atypical plantar fasciitis, which didn't even cover most of the symptoms. So they were like, yeah, that's what it is. So I ended up journeying to a lot of different people. I did like, I saw a bunch of different doctors. I saw physical therapist, naturopath. I did and by the time I was at the naturopath, I had we did a bunch of tests with her, and I honestly, it was just my own feeling. I was just like, I need to get tested for Lyme. And all the doctors were like, no, it's definitely not that.
Okay.
All the medical doctors, they were like, absolutely not. Don't even go there. And I do think that some like traditional, I don't know if traditional is the right word, but like I think the terms allopathic doctors are awesome, really awesome. I also think sometimes sometimes the textbook lags behind sort of the developments, the newer research that's coming out. And also I think that they can be limited by, if the textbook says it's one thing, then that's absolutely how it is. But you can see two different doctors, and like I did, and they would give me two completely different opinions about my symptoms. And I think sometimes it's just like some symptoms fall in a gray area where it's just like, it fell on me to really trust my own intuition and say, hey, and find a naturopath who was ready to go dive in with me with testing. And, and I did that. And then I got like some pretty conclusive tests.
It's funny because in a lot of ways, in my experience and the research I've done, the people I've talked to, just I find that a lot of times it's almost we want that diagnosis so bad. We get to that point where we so badly want an explanation or a reason to justify why we're feeling what we're feeling. But sometimes I've learned that it's almost just better to not have the diagnosis, because in some level, some people they get the diagnosis and it becomes so definitive, like, oh, I have this. And then, the myths or the stories around it are, well, you just have to learn to be comfortable with it. You just have to learn to live with it. You're going to have to adapt, So almost sometimes the diagnosis doesn't leave a lot of light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that sometimes, there's almost like my experience was like, there's a spectrum with healing, and like, you can look at healing as a very concrete thing, and you look in a book and you find the answer, and you find the steps, you apply them, and then it happens. And sometimes it does happen like that. But sometimes it's a wild ride. It's a different, it's, I mean, in my experience, in my case, it kind of was asking me to go on a journey. And that's what ultimately happened.
Nice. Okay. So where do we go from here? You finally, you had this intuition to get tested because you started realizing all these doctors have different opinions. And then you go back to regular medicine and get tested?
Yeah. So it was the point where a doctor suggested that I could possibly cut the fascia off the bottom of my feet. That I was like, you know what? That's absolutely insane.
Oh no.
That can't be a real suggestion.
No, the fascia's there for a reason.
That can't be actually a thing. Like I can think like that is insane. There must be better options out there. So there was this whole cycle of like, I did a year of antibiotics and herbs with a naturopath, and in there was like homeopathy, Reiki, shamanism, yoga, this magnetic protocol that's wild, but pretty cool. But I think like underlying all that was like, there was a metamorphosis that was happening in me and in how I just conceived of this process of healing. And on a, like, just on a fundamental level, I think so much of how I had approached life up to that point, like it became an emotionally healing journey.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, honestly, I'm forgetting a little bit about what we've covered, but like, I do think that sometimes it can just be like a physical healing, and like healing doesn't have to be an emotional journey. Like, I think sometimes there can be like a victimization around that of like, oh, I just, I need, one day I'm going to heal all my things, all my stuff, and then I'm going to be physically healed. And that can become sort of a pressure that we put on ourselves sometimes, I think, in the process of healing. But it was also very true that like this was absolutely an emotional metamorphosis for me. And I'm honestly really grateful that it happened. It totally changed me.
I love the word metamorphosis.
Yeah.
I feel like we're in a collective metamorphosis right now.
Yeah, we're definitely we're in the womb. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe. I hope we are. I hope
Me
we're at
too.
least that far. You know Dr. Bruce Lipton?
Yes.
Yeah, he gave
Yeah.
this
It's like the biology, like cell. I don't remember exactly. Yeah, tell
epigenetics
me.
specialist. Yeah. No, I was just saying he gave this great example once talking about us being in a metamorphosis, and I'm totally digressing here, but
Yeah, I love it.
it's awesome because I never knew quite so much as what he explained about the life of a caterpillar and their characteristics. And he talked about how a caterpillar is all about, like, kind of in a sense, destruction. Like everything that they touch, they eat, they're just like, digging in, eating, and like destroying in a sense. And then they go into this womb. And when they come out of this womb, they become the most complete opposite of what they started as, this beautiful, like, just essence that just floats around and does no harm and only creates good, so it's just this, I never learned that part about the caterpillar. And when he kind of explained that about where we're at with humanity and all, I was like, oh, this is genius.
That's lovely. Yeah, I just want to get to the beautiful floating around where everything I do is good.
we all do, right? But there's a lot of work to be done in that.
Can't say I'm there.
Ground.
Yeah, totally.
So I know that. So you're saying this was like a major, emotional kind of metamorphosis for you. And what were the catalysts? Because we could, there's the physical stuff. And for me, on some levels, I personally believe that a lot of the reasons often that the physical stuff works is because of the placebo effect. Like, I think when we really believe something's working, that power belief is changing the brain pathways in and of itself, creating space for healing to occur, to allow it,
Yeah,
but
totally.
I definitely, in my experience, have seen more often than not that there is always an emotional component as well.
Yeah, we are emotional beings.
Yeah. And so what tools worked for you to help aid you in that emotional metamorphosis, as you call it?
Yeah, absolutely. A thing that's striking me right now, like I want to talk about the tools that worked for me and like the steps that I took that worked. And I think sometimes when I think about doing that, it has this feeling of a clear path. But I think the first sort of thing that resonates for me in like conceiving of my journey was that like it was not perfect, and it felt like a total mess. And
Perfect.
and damn, that was okay. Like, and it is, and like it always kind of is that way. Like, I think probably, for being honest, or if I'm being honest with myself, like the mess is there. I think it's more my relationship to the chaos of it all, the beautiful churning chaos, that also sparks like wonder and beauty and magic. And it's something that I'm not necessarily in control of.
Right.
I'm not in control of it. And that was really hard. And it is really hard when you're sick and you're in pain and you're up against uncertainty and you don't know if it's going to get better. Like, I just remember these times of like sitting and just feeling the vast gulf of uncertainty that was in front of me. And it was so, and then it was like just learning that that's okay. And I think the shift for me was like learning that I can hold a space of love for myself and my heart, and to know that I'm good no matter what is happening around me.
Mm-hmm.
It was like when you talked about like a caterpillar and like that like destruction process, like the destruction process for me was like, it just, this experience removed so many of the ways that uh, escape is the word that's coming to my mind right now, but like all these stressful habits and plans that I had for who I needed to be, and how I needed to be in this world. Like whether that was, I had all these big plans to be, to do a PhD in psychology, and to, and not that that's not a great thing, just for me, like that. And also like I had all these ideas around like my relationships with people that I really needed to spend a lot of energy to take care of them. And I just couldn't anymore. And it really asked me to pay attention to the things that the ways that I was behaving in the world. And it was just, I mean, it had destroyed all of those things.
Right.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
So it kind of shattered all the things, the identity or the goals or the things that you thought you had to do, should do, needed to do. It kind of put all that in question in a sense, because it kind of made it for a while where you just couldn't do those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the only thing that was left to me in that, I mean, this is strong phrasing, but like at that time, I think the one resource that I had, and the thing that I had control over, was like, how am I going to perceive this, and how am I going to like exist with it in my body? And I don't want to exist in a space of despair with this experience. And I also don't want to I don't want to be beating myself up while I'm in this experience. Like there's things I can't control. And some days, like the best thing, or like the highlight of my day, was like going and laying in a sunbeam, like that was it. And can I find joy in that? Is that okay? And yes, it is. And
so you learned to find joy in the simplicity.
Definitely.
And you said you got to a point where you didn't want to where you learned how to exist with it, but you didn't want to exist with it in despair. So to me, that really sounds, I mean, that you you were making a conscious choice to accept what was, and to learn how to find the joy, even if it meant just laying in grass under the sun.
Yeah. And I think there was always a feeling in me of like, I know that this is teaching me something. I know it.
You held on to that belief that this was there for a reason.
Yeah, I definitely held on to that belief.
Did you ever get to a place where you just made a choice that you were going to heal, but like maybe not like a timeline, or put that pressure that it had to happen in a certain way? But did you ever have this decision, this affirmative decision, where you were like, I'm going to heal? That's not a question.
That's a great question. And the answer is yes, but for me, it was more of a slow burn, or more of like it was a gradual process of dropping in. And I think my first step with that was to say, hey, I can love my heart even here.
Yeah. So what was your sources of inspiration? Because these are big changes. You have this, it seems to me like you have this idea of this life you want to live, and how much energy you need to put into people, and that you need to do this PhD, and you have this like, kind of rigid set of like this direction you're headed. Then you end up with this pain. It kind of shatters all those things for the, what might be at the time thought of as just short term. But what inspired you to get to this point? Because learning how to say, I'm not going to fight this, I'm going to exist with this, and I'm not going to be in despair, I'm going to choose to find simple joy. Like, what inspired you to get to that mindset?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. One of the key teachers or like processes that I worked with was this teacher named Tara Brach. And she's a Buddhist meditation teacher. and like she wrote a book called Radical Acceptance. This idea, she starts that book with a quote from Viktor Frankl. And the quote is, between the stimulus and the response is a space. And in that space is our power and our freedom. And that quote really struck me, and just kind of her exploration of this idea that even like no matter what the stimulus is in life or the circumstance, there's this space before we react, and we can step into that space and create a lot of, or experience a lot of beauty. And she has a number of meditations for that, but one of them is this meditation called Rain.
Right.
And it's on Audible. It's really easy to find, or even YouTube.
Okay.
But it's this process of learning to recognize and like really allow what's already inside of us to be there, and more than like trying to get to the goal of like I want to feel better, or I want to, you know, if it's an overt thing like I want to be healthy, or if it's an inner thing of like I just want to feel more peaceful. I don't want to be in emotional pain. That process really starts with allowing what's already present in a paradoxical way. So we're no longer in a battle with ourselves.
Right.
And that was very empowering.
You're not resisting.
Say that again?
Yeah, you're not resisting anymore then.
Yeah, not resisting, and also not like totally not fighting with myself. Finding the space where I can align and feel like no, because I mean honestly, for me and honestly for other people that I've spoken with, I think sometimes in this healing process there can be a frustration with the body, or the fact that we're ill or aren't feeling well, and finding that space of like alliance with the body, with the heart, with who we are, is very transformational.
Absolutely. So you did then use Tara Brach as a reference. It sounds like you read her book, you did some of her meditations.
Yeah.
Was it really then just kind of getting immersed in those principles that you feel like were a huge catalyst for that emotional journey?
I think, I mean, like that rain meditation is like, it's simple. It's very simple, but it's extremely profound. And that was the catalyst. I did that every day. And I think the other catalyst for me was, I mean, I guess a couple of things. One, just on a practical level, I just gave myself permission that like, I'm going to have to spend money to deal with this, like a lot. And it's okay to do that. It's a very basic thing, but like, there's an element there. Like I had to let go of, I had these feelings of shame or irresponsibility that I was just throwing money at anything that felt like it was going to help, and I had to be okay, like that. Like health is absolutely the first priority, and it's totally okay if I do this, and like just to allow, but also transform. Like I felt shame around that I was like not being fiscally responsible.
Even though you were investing in your own well-being.
Yes, totally. And what a weird or painful kind of belief to hold. There's definitely self-worth pieces in there.
Right.
That
if you're not even feeling
money.
worthy of like spending money on yourself to be healthy or well, what is that saying about you're not really telling your body a story like that you're deserving to be well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you did this meditation every day.
Yep. I would do it every morning.
Every morning. She was an inspiration. You were saying this is like an emotional metamorphosis. I'm just going to kind of summarize it, especially for the listeners, and just to make sure we're on board here. It seems to me that what this did was It seems like it just helped you to develop or shift your relationship with you, releasing the shame around investing in yourself, learning acceptance, not resisting, not having that frustration or judgment towards the pain, and learning to just find that simple joy.
Yes, definitely. Like along with this process, I was doing lots of different kinds of treatments, but ultimately at the end of the day, like there was a point where like, I mean, my, my naturopath was like, okay, I think we should do more antibiotics. I was already on like 2 or 3, plus like so many herbs that I was taking, 3 or 4 times a day. And there was a point where it was just like, this path of like, let's just hit it as hard as we can with all the, biotic or antibiotic things, just isn't really making sense. And this metamorphosis, like there was a point where I started giving myself permission to really explore the things that I was really passionate about, and to follow what felt really juicy for me, not just in terms of like what I was, in terms of treatments, but also in terms of like what really feels authentic and passionate. What do I want my life to be about? And what do I want to create and experience in this world that's full of things that I don't even know about yet. And I think that was probably the other big component, was in that process of exploring other, my passions, that like I started to create a vision of a future that I really wanted to heal for. It felt really juicy, and it was something that I really wanted to step into. I mean, and just like the metaphor of like this Lyme thing that just like literally stopped me in my tracks. Like I can't walk and cannot walk forward in my life. And it was also at a time where I just felt this intense crossroads of, I was just like, I don't know how to live really in a way that feels aligned for me. It just forced me to stop and really reevaluate, how am I living, and why is this painful? And do I have to be racing to this horizon? Like, am I actually in danger in this moment? And what's true?
Yes. So you really just in your healing journey, what sounds like is you became more aligned with who you really are, your authentic self, and having this vision of this life. And it gave you this passion because it was this juicy future that you wanted to live for.
Yeah.
Do you know the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza?
I've heard the name, but no, I don't.
Yeah, he talks about that all the time, which is you have to be passionate about this future that you want to create. Like just the sheer act of being excited about it, but also being excited and knowing it's aligned, Yeah. And it seems like that's a huge shift from the stress or pressure of feeling like you have to do certain things because it's the goals, versus being genuinely excited for this direction you're headed because of things you get to do that are more aligned with you.
Yes, totally.
That's a huge shift.
It was a big shift. And I think there's a fundamental why behind that question of like, I think before that, I was just like, I was so upset that I was not healthy. And, it was just, I was like, oh, it's just a given that of course I want to not be in pain. But that wasn't really, something that felt transformational for me. What felt transformational for me was stepping into these. I started doing all these trainings in, forms of yoga, shamanism, tantra, and experiencing these different visions of life, and also honestly being in communities where other people are like, they're alive and they want to live. Like I always wanted to live, but like just where they're hungry for life, and they're, to catch sparks from communities is a really valuable thing. Just to put myself in those environments and to soak that up. And I think that ultimately created an experience for me where I just kept coming up to this question of like, why is it that I want to be in this world, and why is it that I want to be healthy? Like, if I'm healthy, what am I going to do with it? How does that, am I just going to go and do something that's really stressful and that I don't like?
Yeah, fall back into the old routines.
That's not very motivating.
Yeah, it sounds like you're doing something totally different, though. Did you get to a point where you realized that all those big goals that you thought were being trampled over, or that were being taken from you, did you get to a point where you realized they weren't really even the goal to begin with? The PhD,
yes.
or are you still
yes,
going down
definitely.
that path?
I'm not. At this point, like, my passion is supporting individuals to align with a life that is, fills them with juice and verve and vitality.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the pieces for me for that were not a PhD in psychology, though I think that can be a really great path. But yeah, so now the focus has shifted, and there was a shifting point there where it was once I started to become clear on the way that I was already in conflict with myself, and I could feel that kind of that tendency to kind of engage in other people's dreams, I suppose, like live for some idea of life that didn't really fill me with excitement.
Right.
I started to feel what is possible.
Right,
it's possible. I mean, it sounds a bit silly, but it was profound for me to realize that there are things in this life that can bring me deep joy and deep satisfaction. I mean, and can be really fun. Like, I think I was a kid, like I had known fun, but I think I was a very sensitive child, and I think so much of my growing up experience had been a process where I just felt so inundated by the emotions of other people, and also by, kind of the ideals of other people in my environment, that I was just always working towards these ideas that didn't really bring me joy, and to find that I could really feel safe in my body and could lean into things that felt deeply fulfilling was really eye-opening. I didn't know I didn't know what I didn't know, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, we don't know what we don't know. It seems so obvious, but yet it's not.
It's so simple, but it's not.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, that's awesome. And so, so it seems to me like, if I'm hearing you correct, there was this point where you kind of, in this metamorphosis, there's this point where you just learn acceptance, to exist, to not resist, to not, resist the pain and all that. You're finding simple joys, even if it's lying outside, like you said. And then it seems like eventually you continue to do this work, and you get to this point where now you also are feeling good enough where you can enroll in, like you said, yoga or shamanic experiences and learn. And now I'm imagining at this point, you would consider yourself at that point still healing as you enroll in some of these courses and start really immersing yourself in these passions.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. Okay. But you were good and you felt well enough to do these things, but you definitely were still on that journey.
Definitely. I felt well enough. There was some low energy and maybe a bit of brain fog. But it was just
how did you handle that? Did you just honor your truth, and whatever you could give each day is what you gave, and you didn't, and whatever you couldn't give was also okay?
Yes, totally. Really deciding to and I think that was part of it was like these limitations, like, they don't define me, but I'm going to really honor them, and I'm going to really honor what I deeply need. And there's a big message around self-worth in that, for sure, especially in like a public setting of whatever I need is okay, and I'm going to get it. In an assertive and honest way. Yeah.
Yes. And I relate to so much of this. I know this was such a huge shift for me, learning if one day I was so low energy, it was instead of thinking of all the things I couldn't do or being mad that I felt that way today, it was, yay, I get to go lay in my hammock and read a book today,
Yeah.
and just
Hmm.
celebrating those little wins. And yeah, and what you talk about, how you're still healing, but you decide, you have this idea of what sounds juicy in this future you want to create, and then you take the steps to go into these classes and these roles knowing that you're still going to honor your truth. I think that's a huge thing for the listeners to hear, because I think something that I know I've experienced myself, and what I've heard through other people experience, is I think sometimes we almost we're somewhere in the healing journey, and we're not where we're 100%, but yet sometimes I find myself in the past, and maybe other people, where we still kind of hold back from really
Yeah.
stepping into some of these things, these passions that are calling us. And I know for a while I kind of felt like I couldn't go do all those things until I was 100%, because I didn't want to be able to, like, what if one day I didn't feel up to it, And then it was learning, no, I don't have to wait to be fully healed to fully live, because I personally think healing is a lifelong journey. I might be symptom
Absolutely.
free physically, but forever I'm on a path of remembering who I am, and coming into even a deeper authenticity. But yeah, I think that's great that you got to that point where you realize I don't have to wait until I'm 100% to immerse myself in these passions and do these things, because life is for living, and we have to live along the way.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. Yeah, it's beautiful. The Yeah, it's like it's believing that there's a beautiful future that's possible. And I think honestly us the shift in like simply the brain from like this idea of what is, if I was walking around for a while just thinking healing's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, well,
and
and if
there's
you think that, it's not going to be.
totally, and I think that there's a
Yeah.
lot of messages oftentimes with chronic illness that can reinforce that. And
Yeah,
you can
absolutely.
find them in a lot of different places. Um, but at the same time, if you look, you can also find people who have healed, and there's like a point where, and this isn't, it's a point where you just come to this decision of like, do I, which one do I want to live in?
Mm-hmm.
And the difference in your operating system between this is a possible thing, it may be hard, but it can happen. You will find answers for that, and they will come. And
Mm-hmm.
versus just like writing it off or accepting what you're told
Mm-hmm.
is very
Absolutely.
different.
Well, yeah, like how you brought up the brain. This is what's happening when you start to write new stories, when you start to have this relationship with yourself, when you start to make different choices, you are literally changing the chemistry of the brain. You're creating new pathways,
Totally.
and we're writing a new story.
Yeah, and writing a new experience. And I
Mm-hmm.
think also to what you're saying about like going to do something, or that feeling like you need to be 100% ready. I mean, one aspect I think of like leaning into something that's unfamiliar is like, I think that's why for me it was so important to develop, like I had to develop this relationship with myself first, where I
Yes.
was really loving myself through the challenges. And for a while that was just loving myself in the midst of this tangly pain that I didn't know what to do with. But then as I started to feel there were possibilities for what I wanted to live for, and like to have a better sense of what those were, and this process really helped me to identify them.
Yes.
um, it also helped me when I was leaning in saying, I don't know if I'm going to do this well. I don't know if I'm doing, let's say it's a yoga teacher training or some kind of class or course, or even just like, traveling. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do the things that I want to do. And like, I can love you in the middle of that, but
Mm-hmm.
we're still going to do it. And we're going to get things out of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's funny you brought up traveling. I spent a half year traveling in 2019, and it was a very interesting experience traveling through the experiences that I was having physically. And it was the same thing. It was, I'm going to go do this, and this is my journey. Like, I was very, very clear that this was my journey into self-love. Like, I was doing this to love me, and I was so open to whatever it looked like. And I mean, yeah, sure, I'm a human, so I had ideas of what I wanted it to look like or what I thought it would look like, and it looked nothing like I expected it to, and it was completely perfect and okay.
Where did you go, and how was it different?
Throughout Central America. Yeah, and because a lot of it was because I was still very in the I was still dealing with a lot of physical ailments. So, there was just a lot of maybe adventurous activities and things that I would normally engage in or want to do that I had to not do, make a choice not to do. I spent a lot of time in hammocks, a lot of time reading, a lot of time just resting or connecting with people. So yeah, it just shifted the whole experience. It wasn't all about like jumping off waterfalls and hiking up big volcanoes, and that was okay.
Yeah, you find different experiences.
You do, and they're all beautiful. But that acceptance piece is so huge. Yeah. And how you said, I'm going to do this yoga thing, and I don't know if it's going to be perfect or how it's going to be, but all of that embracing, that willingness to embrace whatever is and not place that expectation that you need to show up perfectly is a huge component.
I fully agree. Yeah.
How much lighter does that feel than the burden of carrying around this need for something different?
Yeah, totally. And this pressure for things to all turn out in some crystallized idea of perfection, and not like losing the feeling of the experience, because, and honestly, my connection with my own heart, because I'm like grasping onto this idea of, I need to be able to do everything perfecly the first time. Like just like so unrealistic.
So unrealistic.
Any for anybody in any stage of their journey. And so just like, like that I think was ultimately the real blessing of this process. Was it was just like, hey, Nick, you are really great. You're really good wherever you are, and like that's not an idea any longer. Like that's a lived experience. And I dip in and out of it, but like I have that ground in my body now, and I'm so grateful that happened, and that I was given that, because the alternative was just living with so much pressure and so much more pain than I experienced in those 2 years.
Well, pressure's heavy. It's a heavy burden to carry.
It's a heavy burden to carry for a year. I mean, it's a really heavy burden to carry for 10, 20, 30 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't lighten.
And so you said that's the blessing, and you think that's the biggest blessing in all of this. Would you say is that it helped you learn to step into self-acceptance and self-love?
Yeah, God, because like, what am I doing? What are we doing? If like, I think for me, it was like, it gave me the capacity to let in and enjoy my life. And I'm definitely like, this is an area of like, very like, I'm learning quite a bit about this right now, like alignment with what feels authentic for me. And like, the more I can do that, the more I enjoy my life and the more life supports me. But like at the same time, like, I think in this process, it was just learning, like, it was a deep level of learning of that I can receive life. I don't have to be like taking all the time or trying to force life to fit some small mold. There's so much more to this than my little conceptions of the world. And, so many of which were like trained, taught to me. And there's so much more to who I am. And I can let that come and show me the way forward. In really like, and like that sounds very, I don't know if it sounds very grandiose, but like on a really simple level, it's just like what really deeply excites me, and
Right.
where do I feel that whisper of a thrill that I can lean into, and maybe actually like, you know, a hint of a fear too, because I think a lot of times these authentic parts of ourselves we've been taught, you know, to hide them or keep them hidden and secret. And
Hmm.
so sometimes it's like a mixture of, it's like a thrill where there's like some excitement, some fear, and um, can lean in and get a taste.
Yes, I love it. I love how you said, I love your perception or how you said it and called it receive life. I always think of, I'm teaching myself how to just take the floaty and float downstream. Like, I don't want to
Mm.
swim against the current anymore, you
Yeah.
know? And I love how you just called it receiving life. It's not pushing, it's not taking, it's just receiving. Because it's always, that's the thing that's so amazing in this journey, is the more that you do get aligned, the more you learn that that the universe is always for us, and it's always right there waiting to give and pull us along.
Yes, totally. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think for me, um, yeah, there can be this effort to manipulate even that. I think, you know, because like I had been interested in spiritual things before this healing experience, but I think that they were always, it always came through this lens of like, I'll allow life to flow, but like I know what I really want, and like life should give it to me. You know, like I know it's
I'll allow it to flow in this direction. I'll
right.
allow the universe to pull me this way.
Yeah, right. I'm gonna attract it right on in, and let's make this thing happen because we know it's good. And there's nothing wrong with that, but the I think the what this healing process asked of me is like, okay, is it okay that you're in pain right now? You know, this is what the universe is giving you, and you don't know how to get out of it.
Hmm.
And like, and I think it's not like that. It's not any sense of punishment. It was just like
Right.
at all.
Yeah.
There were
It's
just
because you
there were
bring that up. A lot of people feel that way. They're like, what am I being punished for? What did I do wrong? You know?
totally, and I think sometimes the law of attraction or those kind of teachings can get a little muddled in that way because
Hmm.
it's like,
Hmm.
oh, I just need, you know, I'm not hitting the right vibration. Let me like punish myself and like judge myself, and like let me
Yeah.
find the higher vibration, while which is also tinged with like this desperate, like I don't quite know how to do that, but I'm gonna try, and hopefully the universe will listen. Um,
Yeah.
but I think,
Absolutely. Oh,
yeah,
God, that's a rough one. Getting that fear of, oh my God, I'm feeling this emotion, or I'm feeling this right now. Oh my gosh, that's like a low vibrating emotion. Oh, what am I going to be attracting? You know, you're just, it's so disempowering.
it's so disempowering,
We're
and
we're
it's
going to feel the whole spectrum of all of it.
yeah, absolutely, and it's so yeah, it's so counterproductive, and the healing that's happening for me, and I think when there's a physical healing going on, there's an element of it's putting a limitation in our face and asking us what our relationship with our heart is and what our relationship with love is,
Mm.
and can we allow that to blossom, and when that can blossom, and when we can feel that connection with ourselves, then like yeah, we were talking about like you can receive life, and I think oftentimes like even with like this idea of attraction, there can be this like pulling in of like these desired experiences, but there's also a question of like, is your nervous system open to really letting that in? Like if you want like a really powerful love relationship, is it something that feels soft and open for you? Like is that an authentic excitement, or is it like something that you're, you know, reaching really hard for, and want it just to escape pain?
Hmm.
um, and if it's something that's a grasp, then it's going to get a little tangled, and actually getting there is going to be tough, and the process is a little different if you're approaching, you're kind of following where your authentic impulses are for what you truly feel drawn to in a way that feels soft and loving with yourself. Yeah.
Yes, I love everything you just said, and I love how you explained it. You have a really good way of explaining this concept of the relationship with the heart and love. I don't know, it's really beautiful.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a good perspective that you hold now.
Thank you.
So I guess I want to really quick ask, you told me you would consider yourself 100% healed as far as the physical is concerned. And I'm
Yeah.
so curious, at what point did you feel that way? Like, at what point did you just know?
Yeah. I think the time that I felt that way, that's a good question.
I mean, you might not have, like, I don't know. There's
Totally.
a lot of times where it just kind of organically happens. And one day you wake up and you realize, holy crap, I've been doing really well.
Yeah. I think there were two elements. One was when I started to notice that one was when I started to notice that the symptoms were receding, and I was like, oh, I must be doing something right. And that was very empowering. But I think also the experience of, I just started making all these decisions in my life where I was like, I'm just going to move forward. Where before, I think, like I said, I had been at this crossroads and I was like, okay, like I have these plans to do all these things that don't feel good to me, and the alternative to that at the time felt like this gaping void of like, I don't know what I'm going to do if all my plans aren't, the right plans.
Yeah.
And so I was just stuck in this like rock and hard place where I was like, I can't move forward, but I can't really do anything else. And I think the period where I felt like better or healed, like there was some physical healing that had happened. There was also this point where I just started making changes where I was like, I changed a job. I moved to a new area where there was this beautiful community, and I just started engaging with that community and just like leaning into living a life more. And that's, I think, the time when I felt, it was an authentic pull of like, I just need to create these changes, and I'm afraid of them, honestly. And I don't know if it's the right thing. And I had just been waffling back and forth. And I think, this is a bit of an aside, but a thing that helped me there was I just read this. It was this book on decisiveness and talking about how decisiveness is a learned behavior. It's not a characteristic that's inborn, and that the best thing you can do with making decisions is just to make them. And just trust that you have the capacity to change anything that happens afterwards, rather than this like. It comes with that perfectionism mentality that I had. I had a really good perfectionism mentality, a very strong, where like I was like, okay, pros and cons. I'm gonna think through every aspect of this decision, and I'm gonna but you can't know the future, and
no,
you can't know what you'll experience. So you trust in yourself more than you try to just figure out all the things, and so I just went. And there are aspects of that experience that it was perfect. And there are aspects now that I'm like, you know what, I'm ready to move again.
That's great though. But nothing is permanent.
Right. Exactly.
And
we
get so caught up thinking it is, in that indecision, that need for the decision to be this perfect, right decision when there's no such thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And holding ourselves to these wild standards.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, what's that say? The only way through is through. So the only way to learn to be decisive is to be decisive.
Yeah, totally.
That's changing neuroplasticity of the brain. That's literally rewiring pathways.
Yeah, it felt like a totally new experience. That is for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love too that you were like, oh, and I'm just going to make the decisions. And, if the pain is there, hey, you're coming with me.
Yeah, totally. It was like, yeah, I was like, I know you're going to be there. You're definitely coming with me, aren't you?
Yeah, but that's
Okay.
okay.
All right.
Yeah.
I know how to do
Well, it
this now.
seems like it served its purpose, though. I mean, it seems like it really helped you to not step into this path that clearly was not aligned with your truth.
It totally, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's
I'm,
always there. It's always there for our good. It's just hard to see it and feel it in the moment.
yeah, yeah, it was a big gift. It was a big
Is
gift.
that your biggest? Would you call that your biggest gift?
Hmm. Huh. I I would say that it's definitely one of them. I think my
Yeah.
biggest gift is that I just feel this deep sense of magic and beauty in this world that I just
Yes.
have no doubt about. I know it's there. And like I can have doubts about like whether I can pay my rent or uh like or like, whatever. Um buy a new car or something like that. But um I know that that is there. And I think that's probably the greatest gift that I'm grateful for.
That's awesome. Magic is real.
Magic is real.
We're magical. I believe that.
Me too.
So what are you up to these days? What are you up to now in the world?
Yeah, I do coach people. So I work with sensitive individuals, whatever, like heart led sensitive individuals who want to really channel their gifts to create relationships and lean into their passions, into the life that they feels most authentic for them.
Mm, that's
And
awesome.
otherwise running around like an animal. And that's like connecting with as many people and horses and dogs that I possibly can.
Horses and dogs.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Best teachers.
I haven't had much experience with horses, but I feel like I want to lately. I just keep thinking about them.
They're
Me and
so,
dogs, they're my jam.
yeah, they're so magical in terms of like just like raw nervous system relaxation and like teaching being really grounded. I can't think of a better teacher. They're such good medicine for me just to like, it's just being in their presence. Like I don't need to ride them. Although that can be fun in the right circumstances. It's just like, just going and standing next to a horse while they eat hay and connecting with
Oh,
them.
that's so
It's like,
awesome.
there's such a grounded and connected, like a deep desire, innocent desire for connection that really, yeah, it really touches my heart. And yeah,
I love it. I've been like wanting to just, I have a friend who has horses, and I've been thinking maybe I could ask her if I could just come and like groom them or brush them or
yeah.
just have an experience with them because I don't know, they're just speaking to me.
Yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah.
And I totally support it.
Where can people find you these days if they feel connected to your story and, whether or not they just want to connect with you or they're interested in your coaching and learning more about you? Where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think honestly, like I just love creating uh, fascinating, fun connections and conversations. That's what my coaching is based on. But if people want to like just play with that, if that resonates, yeah. So you can find me. I'm on Instagram at Nick_Shrewsbury, or people can just email nick.shrewsbury1@gmail.com. Yeah.
All right. That's awesome. So I have one final question
Please.
for the listeners out there, for anybody who is, kind of in the brunt of it, whatever they're dealing with, if it's physical, whether it's emotional, whether it's them feeling like they're just stuck in this life that doesn't resonate with them because they're reliving these same patterns over and over and they don't know how they got there, or they are in the brunt of physical illness or pain in their body. What would be the message you would send them if they don't know the direction to go and they don't know what's next and they just need to hear some inspiration, a message? What would your message be?
Jasmine, I love that question. That's so beautiful. My message would be, you are so worthy and you're so good and you're so worthy of love and all the things that you dream. and find that feeling. It's totally possible, and it's a beautiful place to start.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. It's true. Every single person is so worthy and so good, as you say.
Yeah. So, and I actually want to add an addendum in the middle.
Love.
Yeah. In the middle of all the mess, like, it's just, like, your heart is good, and it takes accepting the pain that's there to find that connection. And it's a lovely thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Acceptance is to me, acceptance is an act of self-love.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always try to remind myself and people that love is, yes, it's a felt emotion, but love is very much a verb. It's an action. And I remind myself every day that, like, what would be acts of love? Like, what would I choose to do today that is loving to myself?
Yeah.
Acceptance is very much an act of love.
That's beautiful.
Awesome. Nick, I'm so grateful for your time today and your wisdom and just the way you have with words and your ability to, your courage even to be vulnerable and willing to share your story, your thoughts, and the way that you have articulated and explained this connection with love, acceptance of self, and just self-love. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Jasmine. It's a beautiful space you're creating.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, Nick, enjoy the day.
Thank you. Same to you.
All right, self-healers, that is a wrap. And yay for another wonderful chat from another wonderful soul. Thanks, Nick. Remember the challenge: breathe with yourself or buddy into your heart, self-compassion. You're worth it. And until next time, make this week great.